I'm Conrold, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown, a special combination episode where at the top of the show I'm going to be giving my reactions on last night's Golden Globes, and then back to the regular scheduled programming, my predictions of what I think will get nominated for the Best Documentary Feature category at the 2021 Oscar nominations. But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is break down a different category and I predict what I think will get nominated for the 2021 Oscars. But more generally, this is still an award show channel. So I gave my reactions on the Golden Globe nominations, predicted them, also predicted the Golden Globes. And now I'm going to be reacting them, not necessarily telling you what I think should have won or should not have won, but just giving you my predictions, some analysis, and ultimately what this means for the Golden Globes. So jumping into that part, I always feel inclined to mention that the Golden Globes are a group of about 90 people, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which is not none of them are members of the Academy, which are literally thousands of members who work on movies and film. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association are essentially a group of journalists. So despite its relevance and its importance, not necessarily the movies that win here will ultimately go on to win the Oscar for many of the different categories, because it's a completely different voting group. Yet what the Golden Globes are really, I think, known for in terms of impacting the Oscar race are these televised awards moments, the fact that everyone's watching the show, and that it may incline people to watch certain movies, or it may announce certain, particularly with the acting races, it may announce certain winners. For example, someone like Chadwick Boseman tonight, I think, was announced that he's going to win. That there was maybe a little bit of doubt. I didn't have any doubt that he would ultimately win, but it seems like a foregone conclusion that he will win for Best Lead Actor at the Oscars. So you can sort of just pencil that in, and I think the Globes kind of cemented that. But they also sort of shook up a lot of things, and it'll be interesting to see how the races turn out, because this was a very odd and different kind of award show. 5 out of the 6 acting winners for both comedy and supporting and drama, 5 out of the 6. The performance, their movie, wasn't nominated for Best Film, Drama, or Best Comedy Musical. Only Borat for Sacha Baron Cohen had that sort of film nominated, but as well as the performance winning. So that's fascinating to see that in an award show that normally likes to reward performances of the movies they liked, this time they just went with performance based on itself. And movies like I Care a Lot and Judas and the Black Messiah got rewarded even though their film wasn't recognized. So the way I'm going to sort of break down all the different changes and things we have to be aware of as the Oscar season sort of trots ahead is I broke it down to winners and losers and who's rising and who's falling. So the big winner of the night, of course, was Nomadland, winning in that Best Film Drama category, getting Chloe Zhao for director, I think was a sign that really cemented Nomadland as the frontrunner. That we were always sort of not sure that Nomadland was for the most part the frontrunner, but maybe Trial of Chicago 7 could get an extra boost. But now with this win, this televised win, it makes it very clear that yes, Nomadland is the front runner. It is the movie to beat. I don't think it necessarily has a guaranteed shot of winning Best Picture. You never know with that Best Picture winner. But it is notable that it's probably the most well-liked movie, at least of right now, and I think the Globes kind of wanted in a way to predict the Best Picture winner, and they thought that this was the most likely chance. So that was notable and of note, I thought. And then once again, sort of teaching us about the connection. Never underestimate the connection between director and picture. Another winner of tonight was Andra Day. She is now, in terms of the Oscars, competing at the Best Actress category. And you may go, oh my God, she's going to win. That's not necessarily true. I think that what this win, the surprise win in many ways, gave her is a chance to get nominated. That for the most part, there's a clear 4 that will get nominated for Best Lead Actress. That Carey Mulligan, Vanessa Kirby, Frances McDormand, and Viola Davis have been getting nominated everywhere. So I would be remiss to say that I think those 4 will definitely be nominated, at the very least, at the Oscars. But that 5th slot was sort of always up in the air. Was it going to be Sophia Loren? Was it going to be Zendaya? But now with this win, I think this will push people over the edge who maybe haven't seen United States versus Billie Holiday to check it out, and ultimately, when the people who have seen it are really impressed by Andra Day's performance. So I think Andra sort of cemented herself in terms of getting that final nomination, but it's also worth noting that she has not gotten any industry support, that she did not make the long list for the BAFTAs, so she's not going to get nominated there. She didn't get nominated at SAG. So if someone like Amy Adams gets nominated at SAG and also gets BAFTA, we may be a little bit weary where, yeah, Andra Day won the Golden Globe, but she hasn't got any industry support yet. So it'll be a fascinating situation, and sort of it'll depend on how many people actually saw the movie. But with this with her winning tonight, I think that's a huge sign that this is a performance that you should be watching out for. If you haven't seen United States versus Billie Holiday, check it out, and sort of gives a little bit more of a credibility to her performance as well. So for her, I think it's a win in terms of cementing and helping her get ultimately an Oscar nomination. But in terms of the winner, I think that it hurts Carey Mulligan that she didn't win here, which I thought was sort of maybe an easier category for her to win. There is still no clear winner in this category. It could be Carey Mulligan, it could be Frances McDormand, it could be Andra Day if she gets nominated and has sort of a groundswell of momentum. But I'm not too worried about Carey Mulligan because I think her movie is just generally more well liked, and she also has sort of an explosive, unique, controversial in a way kind of a performance. Then Jodie Foster was the other sort of surprise win. I mentioned in my Golden Globes predictions video that this category was really up in the air. And I went out on a limb and said I thought Glenn Close was going to win. And turns out I could have gone out on even more of a limb and predicted Jodie Foster, which was really a big surprise. And I think her win is similar to Andra Day in the sense that it cements her chances potentially to get nominated. That if she gets maybe a BAFTA supporting actress nod, she didn't get it for SAG, but if she gets that BAFTA and she got this, so I think more people are going to be more inclined to see the Mauritanian. So that's important. Of course, everyone really likes Jodie Foster. She had a sort of a great speech as well. And I think that her chances of getting nominated have increased because of this win. I mean, she was a surprise just to even get nominated. I predicted her to get nominated, and that was sort of a surprise nomination. So to see her win shows that how up in the air I think this category is. So the sort of fourth and fifth slot of this category could go to YJ, could go to Helena Zengel, could go to Jodie Foster. I mean, it's really up in the air in that sense. So you will have to watch out in those fourth and fifth slots of that category. And then more generally, there is no winner. We'll talk about Mank a little bit later, but Amanda Seyfried not winning here is a little bit disappointing. Or even someone like Glenn Close, maybe this could have been her year, and her not winning here I think sort of cements the fact that she's probably not going to win and probably get nominated and once again lose this category. But it's really up in the air. We really don't know who's the front runner in this category, and anyone can merge, and it very well could be someone like Jodie Foster. I'm not entirely sure of that because of the lack of support more generally for the movie, but if anything taught us about tonight is that you don't necessarily need to have a lot of general support for your movie, because if your performance is well liked, if you are well liked, the voters will want you to win. And then the final winner, I think, is Daniel Kaluuya. This was an up-in-the-air category, which I correctly predicted, and I think this kind of cements him now as the frontrunner, where it was really a three-way tie between Sacha Baron Cohen and Leslie Odom Jr. and Daniel Kaluuya. And I think Daniel definitely needed this win, because his movie won't be most likely as well nominated as something like One Night in Miami or The Trial of the Chicago 7, and it needed this win to sort of show everyone that, you know what, we're announcing it. This is going to be the Best Supporting Actor winner. That he does an incredible job playing Fred Hampton. It's very much the Oscar-y role, playing a real-life person with large speeches and showing all the different facets of them. And Kaluuya is such an explosive and interesting young actor that I could see him winning in this category quite easily. Now, we may see something like Sacha Baron Cohen get carried by the strength of his film for Trial of Chicago 7, that there very well could be a situation where they didn't want to give it to him here because they knew they were going to give it to him for Best Lead Comedy Actor. But I think what this does for Daniel Kaluuya is really increase his chances of being that frontrunner, of getting nominated. And he has the type of performance, the type of role that can get nominated, and I expect it in a certain way too. And I think this really cements him as the frontrunner, but as a real threat to win this award in sort of an unsure landscape. This kind of cements it like, hey, this is a guy we need to watch out for. Then going into our losers category, the big one is Mank. This is a movie that's destiny seems to be sort of outlined already. That it was the most well-nominated movie with 6 nominations at the Golden Globes, yet it didn't pick up any. And consistently within critics groups and even within technical sort of industry guilds and whatnot, we see it to be very well respected. That in something the same way of The Irishman or even something like The Revenant to a certain extent, that it's very well respected. It's going to get many nominations, but may not win any awards. It may get 10 nominations and it may go over 10. Now, I think it should get in for something like production design, but it seems to be that it should be well nominated. I still expect it to be well nominated, but in terms of the passion, that's a factor that definitely lacks. And it doesn't have the passion from really any of the members. We see either Golden Globes in awards body or Critics' Choice or any of the earlier critics groups. It doesn't have that passion to sort of push it over the edge and make it even a Best Picture contender or a serious contender. It seems like it's going to be well respected, but maybe not have that passionate vote. And that sort of concerns me of someone like Amanda Seyfried, the once thought to be the definitive winner in this category in what would have been a week or a year, has sort of been up in the air. I mean, the fact that she lost this and didn't get nominated for at the Screen Actors Guild for SAG is a real blow to her chances. I mean, we could be going into the Oscars in terms of who we think is going to win, with Amanda Seyfried, say, winning BAFTA, and Glenn Close winning SAG, and then, of course, Jodie Foster won the Golden Globe, and then it's like, maybe there's a tie at Critics' Choice. I mean, this category is really up in the air, as I mentioned earlier, and Amanda Seyfried can still win it, and maybe she has still the statistically best chance, but missing out on SAG hurts. Not winning here hurts and shows that there's not a lot of passion for the movie in general, and I think that will hurt Amanda Seyfried and her chances. I still think she will get nominated despite missing out on SAG, but her chances of winning are slowly decreasing time and time again, and this was sort of more a general blow to Mank, but also to her chances. The second loser I have here is Promising Young Woman. This was a movie that overperformed in terms of the nominations, that we shouldn't overlook that. It did get Emerald Fennell, it did get in for screenplay, and got in for best film drama as well, but still a little bit disappointing that, it didn't get in for screenplay. It had a very unique screenplay, still sort of lost out to Trial of Chicago 7. Then when that happened, I knew it wasn't going to get in for best picture. Of course, Emerald Fennell missed out, which was not necessarily surprising, but I think the big surprise would be, I think, Carey Mulligan. I think a lot of people had Carey Mulligan winning, and if not Carey, then maybe someone like Viola Davis, but no one, I think, had Andra Day, and I think, in my opinion, this category was up for grabs. I think they don't want to reward Viola Davis and Frances McDormand because they just rewarded them recently. Carey Mulligan is in a movie that should be well liked. I mean, it was very well liked at the Globes. It got in for director and film drama. Shouldn't Carey Mulligan in a very interesting, bold role, and so much so the reason to why you like that movie, shouldn't she have easily won this? You could say that, of course, Andra Day played the sort of diva star, singer, which is the prototypical kind of Globes winner. So that's, like I said, I don't think this definitely destroys Carey Mulligan's chances, but if she got this, I think she would have cemented herself as, yeah, I'm going to win this year. And right now, it's still up in the air that this category could go to a more safe pick in someone like Viola Davis or Frances McDormand, that she hasn't sort of took it and grabbed it and gone with it. That you think back that maybe if she had gone, if Promising Young Woman had gone comedy musical, it would have been a better chance for her. But right now, it overperformed in the nominations, but disappointed in terms of getting for screenplay or getting for lead actress, and more generally, particularly Promising Young Woman's chance maybe at a director nomination or a picture win have slowly sort of decreased. And this move and this sort of tonight, even though the Golden Globes aren't members of the Academy, it's still sort of a shot in terms of its relevance and its recognition that it did lose out on all of these categories, and a couple categories where people thought it would win too. Then, more generally, some other notable nominations that don't require a lot of analysis. Iowa Scene from The Life Ahead. This is written by Diane Warren, who has 13 Oscar nominations and no wins. This sort of win tonight over maybe the presumed favorite in something like Speak Now from One Night in Miami may show us that actually, as a matter of fact, this is going to be the song winner, that this is going to be Diane Warren's first Oscar win, and that campaign maybe started tonight, so that's interesting to see. As I mentioned before, Chadwick Boseman seems to have officially cemented himself as the winner, and I expect him to win the Oscar, and I don't expect anything to change. Soul should win for, I think, both animated feature and score pretty handily. It seems that, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross should get dual nominated for both Soul and Mank, but that Soul is the preferred one. And when you do get dual nominated, for the most part, those people win, and it seems like Soul is sort of the winner and the more preferred score of the two. I think Borat, it's strong showing. I mean, Maria Bakalova missing out was disappointing, but still getting in for Sacha Baron Cohen and for picture, as I correctly predicted. I think shows first chances more generally. I don't think it's going to get a Best Picture nomination, but I do think for something like adapted screenplay, it could surprise and get in. So that was interesting to see that people still have proven that awards voters really still like this movie. So I'm not too worried for someone like Maria Bakalova. Even though she lost, I still think she sort of gets in for that nomination. And more generally, that Borat is well liked. Rosamund Pike didn't get in at the BAFTA long list, didn't get at SAG. You may go, oh, is she going to maybe get in for actress? I really doubt it, frankly. More people have seen it. It's a late-breaking movie, so maybe it could sort of slip in, but this seems to be a very sort of particularly a Globes pick. And like I said, I'm not really worried too much about Carey Mulligan. I still think she gets nominated and still think she has a good chance at winning, but this hurts her. And I am a little bit slightly worried about Maria Bakalova, that she didn't win this quite easy category. But more generally, the Borat's success, I think, still sort of reassures me that, she should still get nominated. So continuing with our regular programming, this second half of the video, I'm going to be giving you my predictions on what I think will get nominated in the Best Documentary category. Now, more generally up top, as we go into more of these technical below-the-line categories, I find that more and more analysis needs to be done, and more of these videos become valuable because we're not exactly sure of what's going to get nominated. You may look at things like Gold Derby or occasional previous nominations, but sometimes they just don't tell us a lot because there hasn't been a lot of guilds or previous nominations for these below-the-line categories. Yet these are the categories that, if you want to do well overall, these are the ones that you have to nail as well. So with this video and with all my videos, I'm just going to give you a landscape, including my predictions of what I think will get in the 5, but more generally just a landscape of the documentary field and why I chose some of the others, so that you can ultimately also make your own decisions. And my first pick was Crip Camp because, like other videos, this has a lot of things going for it. One thing I noticed when looking back at the past 5 or so years of this documentary category is that there's an average of 3 out of the 5 nominations that have come from what I would consider big studios, but more particularly streaming. So Amazon's done very well, Netflix has done very well, Hulu, and then even some more general streaming situations like Nat Geo or PBS, they have also really done well. All these streamers in these past few years really dominating this category, and Netflix has a lot to do with particularly with this category, because documentaries have really seen a boom in the past decade because of the influence Netflix has. Which is why I think Crip Camp is their solid chance of getting a nomination here. That they've got a lot of movies this year, as they do every year, and I believe in them. I think they do a great job campaigning for their movies, getting it in front of voters. I think it helps a lot that their movies are really accessible in the fact that a lot of Academy members are also Netflix subscribers, as with most people who are movie fans. So it's easy for them to just, oh, it's on Netflix, I'll see it, or maybe they had seen it before. So this combination of awareness, but also ease of accessibility helps it. Plus, Netflix is very involved in the award season, in terms of campaigning, in terms of getting into the face of voters. And because of that, there's some years where they have 2-3 nominations in this category are just from Netflix. So they're a real force to be reckoned with within this category. And I think this year, their big strength to win and to get nominated is Crip Camp. Another reason why I think Crip Camp can do well is because it also fits a mold of some of the past winners and past nominations, that particularly in the past 5 or so years, the nominations have becoming increasingly politicized. They all have to be political documentaries. There's very few rare exceptions where they're not sort of political in some sense. And I think Crip Camp sort of toes a unique balance in the sense that it's really just a heartwarming sense of community and these disabled people that go to the summer camp and have this really formative experience. But also, the documentary morphs into the political movement of the Americans with Disability Act, and that momentum, particularly with many of the members within the camp, went on to lead that movement. So it's a heartwarming story, and it makes you feel good, but it's also politically conscious, so it fits the mold of this category, and it's being backed by Netflix. It's gotten a lot of the precursors as well, which is somewhat important, so I think Crip Camp will ultimately get an Oscar nomination. Then my next nomination, I'm going to go with Collective, which is a little bit of a wild card, but I do think it gets in here. It's going to be following the path of Honeyland, which did it a couple years ago, where it's nominated for both foreign language, or in this case, international feature category, and best documentary, and gets in both. Honeyland did that, and I think Collective can also do that. It's backed not by a big distributor, but by Magnolia, who has had success in recent years, and throughout the history of the documentary category, with movies like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, and I'm Not Your Negro. And Collective is a great mold, I think, for a lot of the past winners and past nominees. It's politically conscious. It's a great fly-in-the-wall kind of a documentary, because something like Citizen4, where you're actually there documenting the event, same thing here with Collective, where we're really in these rooms getting unparalleled access, seeing this political sort of controversy unfold. It very much plays like a political thriller, so it's entertaining, and while it's not a talking heads kind of a story, it is still very much an entertaining one that keeps you on your feet and reveals itself like All the President's Men or Spotlight. It's also the movie that I think, out of all the nominees, aside from something like Time, it is very critically acclaimed and has been sort of showing up. Out of all the documentaries, it would be maybe more common than some of the others to show up on a top 10 list, so it has that critic support. and it's been getting a lot of the precursors. Got Broadcast Film Critics Choice Association. It got the International Documentary Association. It made the BAFTA long list for both international feature and documentary. So I expect Collective to sort of follow in the Honeyland path and be well appreciated. And additionally, it's been on Netflix more recently. It's starting to come out in a lot of countries. So I think in the sort of last second Netflix surge and push, more people will be able to see it because it's popping up on the first screen when you open up Netflix, which always helps. Then my third pick, I went with Time, as I mentioned before. Probably I would say the critical favorite of the year, this and Collective, but Time was more popular. So that has things going for it. And that's not necessarily true that the best critical movie of the year gets in for a documentary, but it does have good success and shows that there's a lot of support for it. Out of all the nominees, it's really the only movie that's been getting nominated pretty much everywhere. Got it at PGA, International Documentary Association, Critics' Choice, BAFTA long list. I mean, it's really sort of a well-seen, well-critically acclaimed kind of a movie and has been getting it everywhere. So that's a really good sign for it. And the movie tells a story of a wife who is trying to get her husband out of jail, and it's a mix of this actual footage that she shot during the sort of decades-long process, as well as new black and white footage that was shot by the director, Garrett Bradley, and they mixed together in a very unique, interesting way. And the documentary, just because it's black and white, I think does stand out, and it is sort of a very much a poetic and a lyrical kind of a way of telling the story, which has helped movies like Minding the Gap and Hale County this evening this morning. It's also a very poetic style of story, which has helped movies like Hale County this morning, this evening, and Minding the Gap ultimately get those nominations because I think it stands out from the more traditional talking heads kind of a documentary. But the reason why I have it 3 and not some in a higher sense, because it's the critically loved, it was disappointing that it did not get in on the BAFTA long list for Best Documentary, so it won't be featured there, so I've knocked it out a couple places for that. It's also not the most political movie in the sense that it's like about a movement, like something like Crip Camp is, but it still is politically relevant in terms of the justice system and things like that. So it has elements to it, and I think the sort of poetic style will differentiate itself from other nominees and help it in terms of getting nominated. Then my fourth pick, I went with Dick Johnson Is Dead. Now, every year I feel like there is one movie that's not super political. I mean, some years we get 5 out of 5 are all political, but sometimes with movies like Life Animated or things like that, we do get movies that aren't overtly political, but are well celebrated, that feel different. That I think when you're watching a lot of these documentaries, sometimes the political ones can sort of bleed together. So different styles and different types of content, I think, will be well appreciated. So with this slot, I went with Dick Johnson Is Dead, because I think that's going to be the sort of more heartwarming kind of a nominee of the year, about the filmmaker Kristen Johnson's father, Dick Johnson, and their and them sort of confronting this idea of his soon-to-be death as he's getting older, and his sort of early onset dementia and their relationship, and sort of appreciating his life while he's still here. It's a very sort of funny and unique and existential in parts kind of a documentary, which is very entertaining and very engaging. Dick Johnson himself is a very sweet man and a memorable movie in that sense as well. But like I said, it's also sort of very heartwarming and gives you sort of that sense of fulfillment of life, which I think will actually appreciate these sort of older members of the Academy. I think they'll appreciate some of those elements. And it's also backed by Netflix. So once again, I do believe that Netflix is strong and can sort of push it over the edge. And I think they recognize this as being one of their more successful and likelihood of getting nominated movies. Then my fourth pick, I went with All In: The Fight for Democracy. This is a movie that maybe not a lot of people have in there, but I think will do better than people expect. Has been getting in sort of the necessary places in terms of industry awards, BAFTA, and things like that. And this definitely fits the mold of the political movie. Something like RBG comes to mind in the sense that it is a politically relevant topic for the year that's coming out in. So the United States most recently had their U.S. presidential election, and this movie is about voter suppression. And what was the sort of big controversy of the most recent presidential election was who actually won. Donald Trump thought he won, but ultimately was overturned, and then that led to the Capitol Hill riots and this whole sort of political. The news seemingly was for 3 months about voter fraud and voter suppression and counting the votes. So this movie, I think, will resonate to a lot of people who have just experienced this in the news, this idea of voter suppression. We also know that the Academy is largely liberal and Democrats. So this movie stars, or in part stars, Stacey Abrams, who is a sort of rising star within the Democratic Party. and she is someone who has also been campaigning. So there's a lot of factors to it. I think that it's very political and politically relevant in this time. It also has been seen because it's contending in the Best Original Song category. I think Stacey Abrams, who is in many ways for Academy members like a celebrity, a different type of celebrity, someone like Kobe Bryant when he won for his short. I think Stacey Abrams campaigning for this movie and being in this movie as sort of the face really helps it in terms of it's getting nominated, because she's going out there and campaigning and seems to be a very likable person that would appeal to the members of the Academy. And along with time, I think Amazon is really going to try to push it and get 2 nominations. And you may say they'll go with Time and they'll not go with All in the Fight for Democracy. But I think they're going to try to get in both. I think they'll see its potential. Now, we'll see tomorrow with the BAFTA results if this is actually a contender or whatnot. But I do think it fits so many of the elements of the mold of getting that sort of being political. I think will resonate definitely more, even if it doesn't get into BAFTA. I think it will definitely resonate more with American voters, if anything. And it has the sort of celebrity element with Stacey Abrams and the sort of relevancy of it. We've seen the certain relevant movies at the time of getting nominated, something like Citizen 4. They have done well before in the past, so I also expect this to be appreciated, even if it may not get BAFTA. It is very much an American movie, and I think that will help it. Then my honorable mentions. My first one is Welcome to Chechnya. This was a movie that has sort of disappointing everywhere. Didn't show up at BAFTA. Showed up, I think, only at International Documentary Association. But it's got a couple things that we should note about. First of all, it made the shortlist for documentary, but also for visual effects at the Oscars. So it clearly has some fans. We know that it's clearly liked. Now, it's not going to get any sort of precursors, which leads me to believe that maybe it's not as well liked as we think, and maybe we're sort of overlooking its shortlisting in visual effects, but that is notable that people thought about enough to give it a visual effects shortlist as well. So clearly there's some like within the Academy. It's also notable that it's from HBO, and they sort of don't always get nominated, but when they show up, they sort of put all their efforts and resources into one, and there's still, I think, an argument of prestige when we think of the HBO label. It's also part politically relevant about LGBTQs in Russia, although maybe it's not as politically relevant to something like the voter suppression, because the sort of gay rights issue for a large part of the American members of the Academy had been sort of solved, in quotes, in 2013 when it became legalized. But it is politically relevant. It is HBO backed. We know it's well liked within the Academy because it made both shortlists, but the precursors haven't really liked it at all. There hasn't been any sense of people seeing this movie or liking this movie. So there's not a lot of proof to say, aside from, oh, it made the shortlist, as to why this movie and not something else. So it still could get in, but right now, no indicators have shown us that it will. Then my final honorable mention, I went with My Octopus Teacher. Now this is a surprise movie that I think a lot of people are underestimating it. Now the only reason I have it here in honorable mentions is because I think Dick Johnson is Dead is a little bit more of the popular movie in terms of a Netflix movie that is heartwarming. So when I look at the heartwarming slot on my list, I went with Dick Johnson is Dead, but it very well could be My Octopus Teacher. If you look at the BAFTA long list, not only was this shortlisted for the Best Documentary, but also for Best Director, and it was the only documentary that was shortlisted for Best Director at the BAFTA long list. So that was something interesting to note. It's also been getting in everywhere. PGA, Critics' Choice. So watch out for this movie. If you're not super confident like Dick Johnson is Dead will get in, or maybe My Octopus Teacher surprises and beats out Dick Johnson is Dead at something like BAFTA, I may be more inclined to actually go with My Octopus Teacher instead. But I wouldn't put both, because I think there still is only one heartwarming slot, and that generally they like the political movies, so I would lean in that sense. But definitely watch out for Octopus Teacher and see what the BAFTA does. But that's been it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know some of your favorite moments of the Gold Show. What was your accuracy like? Were you surprised by someone like Jodie Foster, Rosamund Pike? Your favorite moment of the show? I love seeing Barb and Star. That's a great movie. I love to see them show up in quite sort of the funniest moment of the night, in my opinion. But I'd love to hear that stuff in the comments down below. And subscribe to the channel so you're always up to date with my Oscar predictions and all the awards, reactions, and whatnot, so you can get up-to-date analysis on what these situations mean. But that's about it, guys. Until next time, stay tuned.